Hey everybody, Julie Youngblood here with Youngblood Coaching and Consulting, and I'm really pumped because I'm going to show you guys how to present the listing agreement to your seller clients. Now I know that a lot of you have read this because you guys are on top of knowing your stuff. And that's really important to me. What's exciting about the listing agreement, that means that you're actually getting a listing. Which is like the fruit from the real estate gods. We know that. So here's how you're going to go over it with your seller. I'm not going to teach you how to fill in the blanks because you're going to learn how to do that with your broker. However, presentation is really key. Let's be real. This is what lets people know you know what you're doing. All right, Mr. Seller, what we've got here is the agreement or the contract that's going to allow me to begin to market and sell your home. Isn't that exciting? I think so too. Great. So what we've got here is your name, we've got your property address, and it says here that we're willing to accept cash, conventional, FHA, and VA type offers. We're going to list the property at $500,000, just like we talked about. And it says here that if we do get multiple offers, you're okay with me letting other agents know that we've got more than one offer?
I'm not okay with that, Julie. I don't want you telling people.
You know what? I'm not going to tell people what the offers came in at. However, what we can do is encourage people to make their highest and best by way of letting them know there are other offers in on the property. Do you see how that can be a benefit to you?
Yes, Julie, I see that.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and initial that you do allow that. Great. Now, Mr. Seller, are there any personal items included with the sale of this home? For example, the refrigerator, washer, dryer?
Yes, Julie. Fridge, washer, dryer.
Great. I'm just going to write that in here. And is there anything that I should know about that isn't included? Like maybe that really fancy Tiffany chandelier.
Oh, yes, my wife would kill me if I sold that.
Okay, so we're going to exclude that. Now, are you willing to put a replacement in its place? Obviously not Tiffany.
Yeah, we'll throw something up there.
Okay, great. I'll write that in. All right, Mr. Seller, this is where we talk about the compensation. Just like we talked about, based on this particular percentage, we're going to offer X bananas to the other agent. This is still going to net you that $450,000 that we talked about. Do you have any questions on this page?
Yes. Will you reduce your commission?
No, of course not. Any other questions? That's where it's going to come up if it does. And the truth is, if you focus on the net, it doesn't really matter. The bottom line is if you do your job, you've earned your commission, right? So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen there. For the most part, it doesn't. I encourage you to practice commission objection handlers. This isn't the time or place, though. Great. All right, go ahead and sign here. All right, Mr. Seller, compensation will be due if you try to get sneaky on me, and I'm going to explain what that means. What that means is that if for whatever reason a buyer comes in here and you guys get along and you guys really like each other and you pull the buyer aside and you say something like, hey, my contract's about to expire with my realtor, or I'm just going to cancel this deal. I'm going to get out of that agreement and then I'll sell the house to you and we'll save the commission. I want you to know that I'm going to find you and you're going to pay us. Just kidding. I mean, that will happen. It doesn't rarely happen because I think you're going to be really happy with what we do to get your home sold. Agency relationship, we talked a little bit about that when we went over the duties owed. This just is to reiterate that my broker is the agent. I'm a sub-agent of the broker, and really my job is to negotiate and keep your best interest at heart, and I can't go out there blabbing all of your personal information. Do you have any questions on this page, Mr. Seller? I didn't think so. Go ahead and initial right there. Required disclosures. Mr. Seller, there's a few required disclosures that the state makes sure that I give you, and if I don't, I get in big trouble. So I'm actually going to give you a copy of what's called the Residential Disclosure Guide. It's about yay thick. You don't have to read it now because we'd be here until tomorrow. However, you're just going to sign that you did receive that disclosure guide. Okay, go ahead and sign for me right there. This just talks a little about indemnification, talks a little bit about what happens if you think that you want to start suing everybody. Places like GLVAR, the broker, the MLS, you get to hold us harmless from those types of things. Fair housing, we just don't get to discriminate. Now, Mr. Seller, do you have a common interest community, like a homeowners association? Okay, great. What's the name of that? And do you have their telephone number?
No, Julie, I don't.
That's okay. I can find it out. And how much are you paying right now?
I'm paying $65 a month.
Or quarterly. Great. Do you have a master plan and a sub-association, or just a sub? What's your situation?
Yeah, I've got 2 associations. Gee,
Sometimes they get really mad about their homeowners associations. I get it. Okay, so you're going to fill in the information there. Any special assessments, Mr. Seller? Maybe when you bought the property, it was assigned an assessment like an SID or an LID.
Yeah, I think so. I pay it every month or every quarter.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mark yes. Do you know how much is remaining? $10,000. That's significant. And how much do you pay? You pay $600 semi-annually. Great. Now, Mr. Seller, I'm going to mark here that you do in fact authorize us to put a sign in the front yard, and that you do in fact authorize me to put an electronic lockbox on the property. Do you have any questions on this?
No, Julie.
Okay, go ahead and sign right there. Thank you. Boom, boom, boom. All right, Mr. Seller. What this talks about is what we have this thing called a one-day code with our lockbox. And I'm not comfortable giving out one-day codes. Essentially what it is it's an opportunity for me to create a code and give it to anybody to access the lockbox to get into your property. I'm not comfortable doing that, so I'm gonna mark does not. If for whatever reason you get locked out of your house or something like that, we can have a conversation about me giving you a one-day code. However, I'm just not comfortable letting anybody into your property who's not a realtor. Does that make sense? Absolutely. Now, Mr. Seller, the property is currently not leased out, is that right? That is right. Now, if it is, this is a great time for you to get the information. Like, for example, how long is the lease for? Is it month to month? What's the security deposit? What's the monthly? Does the tenant want to stay? So on and so forth. If there is a tenant and you want a lockbox on the property, there's additional forms you have to get signed by the tenant. It's a lockbox authorization for the tenant. They have to approve it for people to come into the property. Just something to be aware of. Now, the section on tax withholding, it's for FIRPTA, which applies to foreign investment, people from other parts of the world who invest in our market here. Mr. Seller, are you a foreign investor? You aren't. I didn't think so. Now, if they are, that's okay. You just mark that they are, and they initial. Here's what's important about that. It's important for you to get familiar with not necessarily all the tax laws. I don't think that that's even possible for us as realtors. I don't think we care that much. However, we do need to have a vague understanding of this, which is basically the way it works is if the foreign investor doesn't pay their taxes on their what they net, what they walk away with on their profits, whoever buys the property could be liable for the tax that wasn't paid. So when you're representing a buyer, it's important to look in the MLS. If it says FIRPTA yes, you want to make sure that you've got an agent and a title company and a seller that's on board with making sure that that money gets held at escrow so that the tax liability is paid. Crazy, huh? Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. Talk to your broker. Okay, Mr. Seller, mediation. I love this part. This is probably one of the coolest things we do. Right now, we're in what I call the honeymoon phase. Like, you like me, I like you, we're excited. And maybe one day, just maybe, like many relationships, that could end. And if it does, before we go to court and we sue the pants off of each other, we just agree that we're going to try to work it out first. So we're going to go mediate. Do you have any questions about that? I didn't think so. It sounds like a great idea, right? So you're going to initial here. And do you have any questions on the entire page? Okay, go ahead and initial right there for me. Multiple listing service. This page, Mr. Seller, this page is all about, page 5 of 8, it's all about marketing. This is the page where you give me the authorization to put the property into the MLS and market it on the internet. Now, if there are things that you aren't comfortable with, like for example, some clients just don't want their address on the MLS because that feeds into the internet. If that's you, that's okay. What we're gonna do is we're just going to remove the ability for that data to be shared with Zillow, Trulia, and all the other websites. If that's not a problem for you, then you're not gonna opt out of anything, and we're gonna go ahead and mark it as we usually do. Do you have any questions on this page? Go ahead and sign right there. Nevada law. Mr. Seller, all this says is that if we decide to write in this contract that we're going to break Nevada law, well, Nevada law it trumps us. The contract, it must be in writing, and everything that we have talked about up until this point must be reduced to writing in this contract for it to be enforceable. A lot of this stuff is kind of that standard contract jargon that you hear, for example, attorney's fees. Gosh, if you sue me and you lose, you gotta pay my fees. Just kidding. All right, Mr. Seller, this is important. Foreclosure. Have you ever had a notice of default filed against you?
No, Julie, I pay my bills.
I thought that you were going to say that, so has not. Just so you know, sometimes they have it. If you don't ask, you don't know. And then you take a listing and 60 days later, you don't have it anymore because the bank owns it. Don't be that guy. Now, just so you know, so I'm on page 6 of 8. This talks about the notice of default. In Nevada, we're actually a judicial and non-judicial state. So what that means is that the non-judicial is where they go down and they file the notice of default, and you get something served on your door. The other part is the judicial. That's where they actually hire attorneys and you get summoned, right? You get a summons to appear in court so that they can serve you with the foreclosure notice. So in the state of Nevada, they can do it either way. Obviously, the judicial is a little bit more expensive. However, it's pretty darn effective. So you want to ask the seller, you want to ask, have you been served a notice of default? No. Have you been served with a summons? And if they say no, great. No matter what, they have to initial there. It also says here that if they get one, they're going to let you know. Signatures, we have this really cool thing called digital signatures. I love it, as long as you're okay with it. And they might even be signing this digitally at this point. Recommendations, we're going to give you recommendations. However, we always recommend that you do your own research. This is a binding contract. So if you aren't comfortable signing it, I recommend that we stop this process and you talk to an attorney. This is where we would write any additional terms. For example, maybe they have a cousin and they say,
Julie, my cousin wants to buy the house. If my cousin buys the house, I'm not paying you commission.
And that's where I kindly offer to do all the paperwork for them for my part of the commission. And that's where you would write weirdo stuff like that in. Here's the bottom line. If you're not well versed at writing additional terms before you write something out, talk to your broker because they'll make sure that you're protected and that the client's protected and that you do the right things. Mr. Seller, do you have any questions on this page? Go ahead and sign right here. I sure hope you guys can tell when I'm talking to you and when I'm talking to the seller. Can they tell, cameraman?
I think so.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Seller, this is where we're going to sign. This is the only place you're going to give me your full signature. Isn't that exciting? So go ahead and sign right here. This is all of my broker's information, right? My company, my name, my license number, my broker, and their license number. Any questions on that? Go ahead. I know you did pick the best. That's crazy that you recognize that already. Go ahead and initial right there. Perfect. And Mr. Seller, this is the final page. This just says once again, hey, we're not going to discriminate. Are you okay with that? I thought so. Go ahead and initial right there. Congratulations, Mr. Seller. You just picked the #1 true gangster of real estate to market your home. Now, for you as an agent, this is not a binding contract until what? Your broker signs it. So don't give a copy of this to your seller until you have your broker sign it. Otherwise, they don't have a contract. Hopefully, this has been very, very helpful. If you have questions, talk to your broker, talk to your coach, call me, 702-234-8181. Have a great day.